Welcome to the 2024 Founders Week celebrations. I'm Sister Jen Schaff, Vice President for Mission and Ministry. This is a time to reflect on the history of Dominican University, the women who began the college, and the Dominican Order. It is also a time to look to the future and how our founders inspire us to continue the Dominican mission. So now I'd like to invite Dr. Martinez, President of Dominican University, to add his welcome.
Thank you, Sister Jen. Welcome to Founders Week. As the first lay president of Dominican University, New York, I am grateful to the sisters who founded the university and enabled it to thrive over the years. I would like to recognize the sisters who are here today. If they could please raise their hands. Thank you. At least I didn't ask you to stand. Let's celebrate these women who are following in the footsteps of St. Dominic and Mother Mary Ann Salmon, who began the Sisters of St. Dominic of Blauvelt, New York in 1878. It's a privilege to be here as we celebrate the legacy of our sisters and the university. Welcome.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. I first met Dr. Walter Hidalgo on Zoom, then as I was stepping off a plane with a group of students in Guatemala City. Dr. Hidalgo currently serves as a mission education specialist and promoter with Marian All Fathers and Brothers. He also serves as a life coach at the Elite Method, where he focuses on developing custom programs that integrate life and sports coaching for children and adolescents. With Guatemalan roots, Dr. Hidalgo is from Rhode Island and has received a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and Political Science, a Master of Arts in Church History and Society, and a doctoral degree from New York Theological Seminary in Transformational Leadership, with a focus on the intersectionality between socio-cultural movements and hip-hop culture. So it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Hidalgo as he speaks on the topic, St. Martin de Porres Got Bars, Hip-Hop, Healing, and Holiness in the Street. You know, he's much cooler than I am because he can say that without having to really work on it. So come on up.
So I'm trying to see how I can navigate this while doing the slides. Sister Jen, you want to help me with that one? Oh, there is? Thank you. Just testing. Oh, okay, good. Okay. All right. Oof, let me get into this space right. I can't sit still because when you got the Spirit in you and when you love what you do, oh, God, I get so happy. So first of all, let me just start off by saying I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you to all of you. I always say, I quote Jay-Z, you could have been anywhere else in the world, but you decided to be here with me. So thank you very much. I want to thank Sister Jen for this invitation. I want to thank every single person that made this event a reality, because not one person makes this into fruition. It is the body of Christ just always working. So I think it's important that I do a quick mic check to kind of give you a run through of what we're going to talk about real briefly, because particularly I do this for the young people. Okay, so before I give my own background, in addition to what Sister Jen said, I want to do a quick mic check. We're going to talk about hip hop. We're going to talk about St. Martin de Porres. We're going to talk about the connection between St. Martin de Porres and hip-hop. We're going to talk about young adults. Why is this important? Why is anything that's coming out of my mouth important? I swear to goodness, everything I do it for the glory of God. So it's very important that what I'm speaking about today is extremely important. If not, I would not be here, respectfully. This is very important. with what's happening in our world right now, okay? And then at the end, I kind of want a few discussions, maybe people kind of click up and have a discussion, and then maybe we can end with a Q&A. Sound fair? Okay, because it's still early. I'm still kind of waking up because I was up kind of late, okay? Okay. So I was in Italia, shout out to my Italianos, ciao, not too long ago, and someone asked me, what is hip hop? And in order for me to talk about hip hop, I got to start it off like this. Oh, let me get ready. Need I remind you how I rhyme with lines aligned with divine minds, not measured in our time, so I walk amongst angels. Now I'm too high, sitting on cloud 9, letting my cross dangle. And manhandle those opposing Emmanuel. How you talking faith without reading the manual? Little heaven on earth, it's what it's worth as I impregnate these words to give birth to verbs. This, what I'm about to say, can be a little controversial. But as an academic and someone that's free and liberated and has God in his life, I kind of feel the free will to say this. So forgive me what I'm about to say, okay? When I was about 20 years old, I was discerning priesthood. So I could have been the father instead of the doctor. So that's what, now I'm a father of one, I tell people, but I've fathered thousands, right? So, and I was sitting down and I was talking to Padre Hugo, shout out from Colombia. And I left, out of that discussion, I left two things out of that discussion. The first thing was, he says, Walter, you don't need to wear a collar to do God's work. Whew. Okay, I don't need to be a priest to do this, but I'm still gonna do this, right? The second thing he said was, he was speaking kind of Hindu mysticism, eschatologically, if you will, where he said that heaven is like an ocean, and each religion and faith is like a river that leads to that ocean. I kind of believe that hip hop is one of those rivers leading people into that ocean. Oh, the clicker. I keep forgetting the clicker. So I spent about 20 years of my life, and still ongoing, traveling all over the world and asking people, is hip hop spiritual to you? Is hip hop creating community? Right? Is hip hop creating purpose in your life? So through the works of Dr. James Cone, Liberation Theology, and really from Father Dr. Roger Haight at Union Theological Seminary, when I was taking his class, Spirituality, Ethics, and Theology, and he quoted Paul Tillich when he said that spirituality is how individuals and group of individuals define their ultimate reality. My reality is coming from the hood, coming from a place of pain and struggle, of immigrant parents who came from the diaspora, but the one thing that I felt was connecting us all. The last saving grace, another controversial. The last thing that can really kind of unite us all is higher infinite power healing our people. Like Biggie said, I got a story to tell. Like the Lord said, I got a story to tell. Everything starts from a story. Who's my story, right? Where am I coming from? Where's the situation I'm coming from, right? Growing up Roman Catholic from immigrant parents that came from Guatemala. Dad came economic, poor, had nothing. He always said, we split one egg between my 7 siblings. Ooh, 1 egg, 7 siblings? Let that sink in, right? And then my mom came here because her grandfather, he used to work putting pavement in the streets in Guatemala. And he, over the course of time, he was hearing stories of people being kidnapped, people being killed, murdered, until eventually they murdered him. And him, along with 250,000 native indigenous Mayans, were also killed. And it was documented in a book called Nunca Más. Translation, no more, right? So I kind of feel like that spiritual synergy of revolution, of finding myself, was in mommy and daddy, and it created me, right? So it drew me to really understand, what is it that I can fit, where are my gifts and talents to fit in, can fit in into this world, right? I felt that hip hop was one of those things, so I started to do a lot of research. And I began in the birthplace of hip hop. I wanted to test anyone. Does anybody know when hip hop was born? The official time or day? Anybody? Wow, nobody. Well, first of all, let me ask this question. Does anybody here love hip hop? Oh, it's interesting. How about music? How many people love music? Okay. I'll give a prize to anybody that can tell me who this individual on the far right is. No.
I know, but I know where this is going. I'd like some extra credit for saying that I love Rapper's Delight.
Oh, okay. The president loves Rapper's Delight.
Is that the first one?
One of the first ones. Yeah. So for that, you get a prize, sir. Hip hop was, oh, yes.
Hip hop started in parties in the city, in the Bronx, in the 1970s.
That,
There's a great documentary
yes.
on the birth of hip hop.
That's right. That's right. Yes, yes, yes. So I say unofficial is August 11th, 1973 on 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx. Okay, why do we say that time period? A Jamaican-born immigrant named now DJ Kool Herc came from Jamaica. It's a book documented from Jeff Chan called Can't Stop, Won't Stop. I recommend you read that. And it documents the historicity of the Jamaican roots to hip-hop coming to the Bronx. So that culture of big speaker, loud music, reggae music, right? Eventually sort of molded into hip hop, but when you also include salsa, jazz, when you include old record players from like the Temptations or the doo-wops, right? We say that gentleman on the far right is one of the pioneers. His name is Grandmaster Caz from the Bronx. He said that hip hop did not invent anything, it recreated everything. This is where the term remix comes from. Right? So hip hop remixed the world. So probably about 80 to 85% of the songs you hear hip hop, I don't care if it's trap or what's the drill or whatever variations, has pinpoints that can trace all the way back to jazz, to gospel, to reggae. So it's important that we understand the spiritual musicology associated with this movement and what's happening. Right, so I wanted to document that. I wanted to see what was going on because nobody else was doing this. It wasn't until recently Dr. Alexis Manstrom from Texas State University started to do this work. Now we have what my advisor says, we are living in a hip hop renaissance. So when we talk about culture, hip hop is a culture. I probably say the only thing it doesn't have is food. But you go in the hood, there's different kinds of food, right? So, I mean, there's different variations of hip hop culture. So, you know, we have the MC, the B-boy, the graffiti artist, right? The DJ. So the MC, master of ceremony. I always say that the number one MC was Moses, right? He moved the crowd. Jesus followed after that, right? But MCs are kind of your modern day prophets. They're the one that is disseminating information. It's what Nori from the Drink Champ says. We were the CNN of the hood, right? We documented and said all the information that was going on in the world, right? We also talked about the DJ. You know, a lot of people underestimate the role of the DJ. The DJ was actually the first element. Some would argue graffiti, even dating all the way back to Italy, even Philadelphia. That's a whole other conversation. But the DJ is actually an alchemist, if you will. Most DJs were producers, right? So alchemy is to create something out of nothing, right? I reminded one sister was throwing a party. She was like, oh yeah, I'm just the DJ. And I go, you're just the DJ? You ever heard that saying, the DJ saved my life? You ever had a really bad day, like a really bad day, sister, and you just walk into a space, the DJ's like, tick, 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 play something good. You're like, Lord, you're talking to me right now. The DJ saved my life many times. And I think it saved a lot of people during the pandemic. B-boys, B-girls. The embodiment, the body, the theology of the body, right? It's pretty fascinating to see a 60-year-old still breakdancing. You know how fit and disciplined? It's pretty amazing. So they say, you know, if you're going to praise God, why don't you do it through dance? And there are many people that are doing that. Graffiti, we know art has always been a form of resistance, right? That's always been the way we mark. I mean, we know, we see the fisheye, we know who's been here, right? It's been across and embedded in our culture and our historicity for so long. So hip hop is kind of a continuation of that culture. Graffiti art has always been a sort of form of protest, right? But in hip hop's case, whenever you see names and tags, it's to let people know that we're in the building, right? So phase one or X this. So it was forming an identity where you never had one before. And the other part that most people don't talk about comes from KRS-One, my brother. He said that the fifth element of hip hop is knowledge. Knowledge of self and knowing who you are. And we know that runs very deep in our culture and our faith, right? Particularly in the book of Proverbs, where we search for knowledge and wisdom like we search for silver and gold. Now let's get to the kind of, he's about all this hip hop stuff, but I really want to know about this. And I say that St. Martin de Porres does got bars. And by bars, I'm not talking about drinking. Bars, I'm talking about lyrics. I can't talk about this gentleman, and I really mean gentle, man, without first asking, what is a saint? Anyone? Oh, God, ain't that the truth? Thank you. We were just talking about light, right? Anyone else? Someone that brings others to God. You get drawn to the light. Kind of like Lord of the Rings when the light was coming. Oh, sorry, my Lord of the Rings. Probably one of the best definitions of a saint that I ever heard, that I love, that I try to follow, is an ordinary person that does extraordinary things. Yeah, you know, I like St. Martin de Porres. When, you know, Sister Jen was telling me, you know, you have to highlight a Dominican. I said, oh, Dominican, I know one, St. Martin. St. Martin de Porres lived in a very interesting time, right? He lived in the 16th century, right? And for those of us that, how many people are history buffs? God, one person loves history here, right? What was happening around that time, sir?
In the Elizabethan era, where the expansion of Europe into what they call the New World.
That's right, that's right. So we were living during the time of colonial period, right? Where we're still, in this case, like in many parts of the New World, we're experiencing what we call like a caste system, like in India, right? Where the color scheme dictated where you were in society. So as somebody that was born to a Spanish dad and an Afro, I would like to call Afro-Indigenous woman, right? He was a mixed person. And at that time, a mixed person was in the lower totem pole of society, right? So given those sociological conditions, how does someone become holy? Where does sainthood penetrate in your soul and heart when everything is against you? It's a different perspective, right? He never became a priest, he became a brother. In fact, they didn't want him around. Even law within Peru did not allow people of color persuasion to be up there. It kind of reminds me of, what was it, the brown paper bag thing in Harlem? Do we know what I'm talking about with that? Okay, sometimes I feel like I gotta tell. Brown paper bag is a test they did back in the day where they would put it in front of like social places and clubs, and if you were darkened in that brown paper bag, you weren't allowed in. Brown paper bag, okay? He was the patron saint, I call, of hustling. Every day I'm hustling, hustling, hustling. Because golly, he was like the modern day Jim. I don't mean to stereotype. I say these with joke. I say with love, right? But he had like 8 jobs. He was a multitasker. But everything he did it with joy. Everything he did it with humility. Everything he did it with love. And every single thing he did for the glory. And that makes a big difference. A big difference. And I say that today, I'm going to say it, because, you know, customer service right now is at a low time, high low right now. Like, very low, right? Like, and it's like, I go to places and I'm like, you know, just smile, just a little smile. I'll give you, you know, it makes a big difference. He did it with such a big smile in his face, and we can learn so much from that, right? A healer served the poor across racial class lines. Kind of reminds me of hip hop, but you know, we'll get to that part, right? Someone who crossed racial lines. Anybody here love X-Men? Love like DC Comics? Do we have? Oh my God! Come on, do we need to wake up? Do I need to do an exercise? Oh, I didn't do the exercise I wanted to do. Oh, I forgot, because I just jumped right into this. Anybody here like X-Men, like superheroes? Gosh, anime? A little bit? Okay. Tough crowd this morning. All right, why do I say that? You know, we talk about saints a lot, and, you know, I always have this conversation with a lot of my friends. We laugh about it because, you know, so a little bit about me as I'm sharing, as we're having this conversation today. I work with the Marino Fathers and Brothers. I've been with them now, it'll be 9 years in Halloween. It'll make 9 years I've been with Marino. 10, I can't believe it, right? And if you ever been to the seminary there in Austining, I highly recommend you do. It appears, it has a Chinese aesthetic appeal, okay? Why? Because the first missionaries went to China, right? But if you go to this building, the first thing I said to them was like, is this where the X-Men were? Because you ever seen X-Men? They lived in Westchester County, right? From New York. Yeah. So why do I say modern day X-Men? We really did have X-Men amongst us. He was known to bilocate as well. Like Padre Pio, another favorite of mine. Does anyone know what bilocate is? My young folk, do we know what bilocation means? Okay, let's break it down. Bicycle, two, locale, location. So he's known to be at 2 places at the same time. That's some X-Men stuff, yo. I don't know about y'all, that's X-Men. He was actually known to appear in Japan, the Philippines, and I believe Mexico as well. There was reports. He was also known, his prayer was so deep that he would levitate. Some accounts 3 feet, some 6 feet. Okay. Anybody here a vegan? I'm not laughing at vegans. I'm really just saying because there's a reason. I'm kind of a vegan, kind of. Okay, nobody wants to admit that. Okay, I would think he was a vegan too, maybe, because he loved animals so much. He was even known to talk to animals. Reminds me of Narnia. Anybody ever seen Narnia? Yeah. There were reports of him even, there was one report where the mice were eating some of the food in the convent, and he actually called them out, and he spoke to them, and they never ate the food at the convent again. He was also, I think there was reported, if I recall, a tiger or some sort of animal that was wounded near the convent, and he spoke to him and healed him, and he ended up like chilling around there with them for about a week. So this person had different superpowers. That's why I said like an X-Men. If you can levitate and be in 2 places, what do you want to be at 2 places at the same? I think about that every day, right? The person of the broom, the reason he has the broom is because he was known for cleaning. He just cleaned. No questions asked. Right? Even though they accepted him, he wanted it to be by proxy just next to the community, and one of the ways he served was by cleaning. So those that are home clean aides or work in that industry, St. Martin's a good one to pray to. So what makes St. Martin have bars? Martin was a healer, and hip-hop is higher infinite power healing our people. One organization that I documented for years was Hip Hop Heals, an organization in the Bronx that brings together young adults to create ciphers in a circle using psychology and using freestyle through hip-hop, right, for healing. Right? I loved what St. Martin de Porres said. He said, I cure them, but God heals them. You cure them, God heals them. Margins. Hip-hop came from the margins. See, we talked about the sociological conditions in Peru in the 16th century, but those of us who were here in the Bronx in the 1970s, kind of tough time. Really tough time, right? Abandoned buildings, no after school programs. It was just so much going on. But somehow the Lord came in. Boom, a culture was born. Boom, Martin came to the world to show us a different way, or the way. Rebellion. Martin defined everything just the fact of who he is, and stepping in spaces and places where otherwise he would have never been accepted. He still stepped in those places with love and humility, right? Given where we are in the world right now, I think we kind of need a little bit of that, just a little bit. We can learn a lot from the saints that still speak to us till this day, extremely important. So when we talk about rebellion, right? It doesn't have to be making noise, the rah, rah, rah. It's kind of what, like my sister, Shirley Chisholm. Anybody know who Shirley Chisholm is? Right? African-American woman from Brooklyn, could have been the first president. She says, if they don't invite you to the table, bring a folding chair. See, you gotta, like, what is a saint, right? Like, what does that mean? Right? You really got to digest that, right? And we've been kind of thinking of sainthood like holier than thou. Things are changing a little bit. Didn't we just have recently a young boy become a saint? Community. Martin served all. I got to tell you, I'm going to hurt some feelings with this one, but I think it was Dr. King that said the most segregated day of the week is when? Sunday. I don't know, but hip hop, it sure look pretty colorful, and it's really building bridges. And if I dare to say Palestine and Gaza right now, you better believe that there's Israeli hip hoppers and Ghazian hip hoppers working together as we speak. Been happening, right? Because it's defying all the norms. It's rebellion and it's bridging. Humility, of course, we know, because I know for the folks that are thinking when I hear hip hop, they're like, oh my God, you're talking about that loud, misogynistic, evil. Like, no, I'm not talking about that at all. At all. Anything you see on social media that looks derogatory, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the temple of hip hop. I'm talking about Tony Blackman, the first hip hop diplomat to go to over 70 countries using hip hop for conflict resolution. Like, there's so many organizations and people that we need to learn and tap into, right? Go into these spaces. Now let's get into some numbers. How am I doing with time, Sister Jen? I want to respect. I'm good? Yeah. Good, okay. I think this is the part where I'm kind of going to bridge the intergenerational ocean I see here. Okay, this is a little bit of the work that I've been doing, and I think this is probably at the meat of it all right here, okay? Don't let these numbers, don't let these stuff, you can read it on your own, but let me just break it down to you really quick like this. In 2012, a great phenomenon happened in our world. Some different religions called it the new beginning. The fear of the apocalypse, 2012. There was a movie on it and everything. I don't know if you remember. And there's an interesting book called The Mayan Factor that I recommend everybody read from an art historian who's leaving his name off the top of my head. Long story short, we had the largest mass exodus of young adults in 2012 in the history of our world. Lowest numbers, 4 million. Some say as high as 20 million. We're not just talking Catholics, we're talking about Jewish, Islamic, people from different faiths just left all together in 2012. At the same time, in 2012, social media was on the rise. Twitter was at the peak. In 2012, people were going in on Twitter, and church was tilting this way. Technology, church. We weren't ready for that. Can everyone hear? Yep. It was a huge shift in our culture. And what happened was we saw a decline in church presence. That's 2012. That's kind of a little bit long ago now, 10 years, semi-outdated. But then what happens? The next wave, the pandemic. And that shifted everything. Those of us who've worked in religious education, DREs, or dioceses, etc., I mean, we see what's happening in CRS and other spaces. Right? A lot is shifting, a lot of change is going on. So what happened along that with that too? I want my young adults to pay attention to number 3, the National Federation of Catholic Youth Ministry. Does anybody know that organization here? They meet annually every year. I'll be meeting with them again next year. This year they met in Atlanta. Right? And it's just all youth ministers from across the world. They did a data study, research, for young adults between the ages of about 18 to about 35, plus or minus. And they found the 4 top most distrustful professions for young adults. The first one is doctors. We were just talking about the whole health situation, right? Because there's a huge shift in people wanting to more organic and this stuff. So this, and then the Fauci situation. I'm very careful about bringing names and situations up now because we're living in cancel culture, but I have to be honest, these are things I'm speaking, generally speaking, there's a lot of shift that was happening that made young adults go, I don't trust this person, that person, this person, that. Number 1, doctors. Number 2, police. The book that I just gave the president, Resurrection Hope, A Future Where Black Lives Matter. That's a book by Orbis Book, from the Marino Fathers and Brothers, by the way. Right? Number 3 is college professors. I'm not going to ask who the professors are. I'm not going to. Right? Challenging time. Very challenging time. But that's always been the case. Weren't the rabbis chased? And then the 4th one, and this is why I sister? Okay, I got it. Oh. Check, mic check. This is why I specifically work with young adults that we call 1 foot in the church and 1 foot out of the church. That's the demographic that I work with. And it's hard. It's hard. So, these 2 different young adults in conversation with each other, very interesting, very different, right? But the reality is that there's been a lot of tension going on. Getting better. Now, let me bring a little bit of hope, right? What's one way we measure young adults being involved? Vocations is one way. How are they investing their time into the church? Right? Not necessarily what they call it, but how they're investing. We are starting to see more of a rise of young adults' participation in the church in the United States. Semi-plateauing. South America, plateauing. Africa continues to rise. And vocations. It's very interesting with young adults. Okay. And this is something to think about as people who may or may not work in the ministry. So as a result of the mass exodus, the question is, how are we incorporating our gifts and talents into the mess, the chaos, right? Because as Pope Francis says, I want a dirty church. I want the hands to get a little bit dirty, right? So I've worked with the Marino Fathers and Brothers. That's how I met Sister Jen. I've been developing religious ed curriculum for kids for years, accompanying young adults on immersion trips. The last immersion trip that I brought young adults was 2 universities, including Yale and Massachusetts, to Jamaica, right? And what a perfect place to go to if you want to talk about the connection between hip hop, right? Rastafarianism, right? Rastafarianism is basically just Judeo-Christianity 101. Respectfully, right? Because a lot of the music comes from the idea that we are in captive slaves in Jamaica who want to exodus, leave back, right? So if you listen to reggae, so there's always been a tone of liberation, theology, right? So with Marino, we conducted over 1,000 interviews across the country for the last 5 years. That's what I've been doing and continue to do, right? And young adults want to be leaders. They want to be identified. They want formation. Young adults want formation. They want, this is a controversial word now, so I dare to say it, but they want a safe space, right? That's the part. It's interesting to me, this really trips me out, because I'm a yelder. Do you know what I mean by elder? Yes, you got it. I'm a young elder, right? I'm 43, baby. I look good, I feel good, but I'm not young, right? I'm right in the middle, right? So it's very interesting to me when I go to these universities and I see signs of like depression, like really bad, like signs for it. Like this is a different time that we're living in right now. Super different. My dad would be like, get it together, let's go. We don't got time to cry, we got to get it together. But it's very different what's happening now. In some ways, I kind of, and this is very important right here. I'm talking about this social media stuff. And I got to remind you, media, multi-ethnic destruction in America, right? So what's the other thing that young people yearn for is justice. How can they express their faith more? So why can't hip hop be that platform, that space where we can kind of unravel some of those gifts and untapped talents, right? Because you don't need to be a hip hopper to be hip hop. Anybody just recognize some people that are up there? You can throw their names out if you want. Any familiar faces? No. Wow. What? Yep, there's Kendrick. There's Kendrick. A call to prophecy, saints and sneakers. Who are the modern day St. Martin de Porres? Who are our prophets? Who are speaking truth to power? A lot of people might look at that halftime show and be like, it was just a show, but ooh-wee. Golly, there was a lot of symbology, theology embedded in there. And if we know Kendrick Lamar, something is happening. It's kind of like, anybody ever seen the movie The Shack? Oh my God, you gotta watch the movie The Shack, Jan, right? God was a beautiful black woman cooking in the kitchen. Cooking in the kitchen, that's what God does, just cooks in the kitchen. Kendrick, anybody, please, the woman, I had to shout out the woman too, because they are saints and prophetesses too. Anyone know? Sister Jen knows, but she doesn't want to answer. Who is she? It's okay to say it. Nobody knows this? Lauryn Hill? Some would say she's a prophet. Probably has one of the best hip hop albums of all time, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. If you have not heard that, you better tune in. I'm very surprised and very disappointed that people didn't know who my brother is right here with the bald head. I wish I recorded this. Again, I wish I recorded. Nobody knows who that guy is, right? Okay. Father J. Bishop is the first auxiliary Dominican American bishop from the United States of America, from Wash Heights, Manhattan. My brother from another. And he has a podcast called Sainthood in the City with my other brothers. that I recommend you tune in. What was the first thing when he became an auxiliary bishop? What he says, "Pa mi gente, we here." Hip hop is in the building, y'all. Who are the modern day prophets and saints today? Far left. What a special moment. Ooh, golly. I cried, Sister Jen. I cry a lot, by the way, man. Because when you love it, when you feel it. Just 2 weeks ago, was it? Something happened at the Vatican? Did anybody tune in and watch? Anybody? And who was there performing? Oh! Nobody knows the name of the group? Clips. From the Bronx, originally. And they, oh God, what was the song? The Death of a Bird or something. Basically, talking about dad not being in the picture in the form of a rap lyric. But it wasn't just hip hoppers, it was people from all different music genres. So there was a performance at the Vatican, and it was the first time hip hop was performed at the Vatican. Interesting. Even though there were b-boys that b-boyed for John Paul II. A lot of people don't know that. So the culture's in there. And I think Pope Leo's kind of understanding that culture is very much part of this, and we need it in order to shape our faith. Last week, I attended this annual thing that I helped to coordinate. Just like Marino does, it's a long title. So it's for our formation program. We have it every single year, right? And you have to have gone through a couple of steps before getting to this program. So either attended a formation program or an immersion trip, right? So it happens every single year. And we invite people of leadership. I really wanted you to be there, Sister Jen, but I know you were busy. But it's people that we invite who are in leadership positions, DREs, or whoever, right? Non-for-profits. This is a kind of like a caricature, so to speak, of who we want to invite to this. The title of this gathering was Prophets, Poets, and People Power. Cultivating Hope Through Intergenerational and Global Solidarity in Times of Upheaval. Clearly, we see St. Martin living in a time where there was a lot of division, given the caste system that was embedded during Spanish colonialism in Peru, which, by the way, how could I forget? Shout out to all my Latin people, because it is Hispanic Heritage Month. Hey. So anybody that's Peruvian, shout out to you. Right? Because it's a Peruvian, right? I want us to, how much time we got left, Sister Jen? No. 10 minutes. I want us for just 5 minutes within yourselves, just get into a group and answer one or two of these questions here, just to reflect on. How does my lived experience and culture influence my gifts and talents? What poets or MCs and or prophets influence my faith yesterday and today? How is the Spirit inviting me to match my gifts, talents, and skills with the call to serve? Okay, loaded questions, a lot to think about, but get together amongst yourselves. What are you hearing with what I said and those questions? Who are your modern day prophets? Who are you listening to? Who are you reading to? Share with each other. 5 minutes.
Love your energy, man.
Thank you, brother.
And I'm learning stuff.
Good.
Taking
I hope so.
pictures, learning stuff.
You know, the last
I'm
time.
like, I don't have the answer. I'm
And I don't either.
Yeah.
Trust me. You know what's crazy? You remind. The last time I did this presentation, well, a variation of it.
Yeah.
I did it with a panel.
okay.
And one of the guys that was presented,
Yeah.
his presentation was pictures and theology. And he did all these pictures that he did. And he was very vulnerable about his depression and things. He got raped as a kid. But the image impact and how he broke it down
Yeah.
logically and shared it in the course of the story. I'm looking at the camera like at a different way you're looking at it, perspective.
Yes, yes.
So it's like a picture's worth 1,000 words, but the spirit is working
Music
in
too.
multitude.
Music
Absolutely.
just like, I could tell, I'm a songwriter and a guitar player and a singer and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's my passion, is writing a song, coming up with just one little, someone said to me the other morning. I wrote this song called 3 a.m. Wherever this stuff comes from, you know?
Yep,
Good morning.
I wish my wife were here. My wife is a huge hip hop fan.
Really?
I only saw the topic of this today. Otherwise, I would have told her to come, and she would have answered every one of your questions. She would have nailed. She would have been Lauren Hill. She would have been like.
That's what I
she
was
would have
just
gotten
saying.
all
I
of
don't
them.
know who that is.
I know.
that.
I should know.
I know.
But I see it in your eyes
But
too.
I was
You
just
jumped
laugh-
up.
but
like-
it was funny because I'm like, I only know because of my wife. It's not
Sure.
like, I mean, like I appreciate everything, but she is
She's
a
really
huge,
into it.
huge fan. Yeah, and she's the one who made me watch some of that. Have you seen that
you're
documentary?
probably talking about Wild Style. I talk about Wild Style?
No, there's a documentary that was like, it's like a multi-series documentary. It's like the history of hip hop.
Netflix? Was it on Netflix? I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I watched it. I mean, it starts with here, the house call in the Bronx. Here's how you go
A son from an audio company was providing PA system and speakers and a wattage at the convention center for this huge concert. I was like, I walked in there, I'm like, wow. So it was an eye opener. Classic hip hop bands that bought my wife's t-shirt she wore the rest of the night. So it's like, wow, here I am.
Okay. Oof, I've been told it's time. So just bringing it back, any thoughts, reflections anybody would like to share that came out of your conversations? Anyone, just one thing, or a word. Yes.
I mean, good man, hard man to create a strong man, and then vice versa, so fun to create strong.
That's right. In fact, you're so wise. In fact, that was a lot of my work too. How is God present during the most toughest of times? Scripturally, for example, one example is Miriam, right? Moses' sister. After the Red Sea parted, what did Miriam do? She danced and praised the Lord. Amen. right? Anyone else? Thoughts. No one. One more person. One more. Yes.
One of the things we shared was that in service to others, we sometimes forget to care for ourselves, and that's an important, in order to continue to serve, we have to pause and take care, self-care.
That's right. Amen. Yeah, I agree. Super healthy to step back. I mean, that's what retreats are, right? To step back. I'm actually going to retreat next week. Yes, I can't wait. I need to be fed too, man. I need to be fed too. Who else? Anyone else? Thoughts, comments? No? Okay, we're going to the shift. To close this up. I wanted to share a quick video. I hope this works. I don't know. Let's see.
Muhammad Ali, and it reads as such. Oh my God. Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth.
This is a homage gift.
You better pay that rent, man.
This is what they want, huh? Love. All right.
So, on Thursday, my 14th season of my podcast, Know Thyself, comes out. And we talk about action. See, in Marino, we use the pastoral circle of seeing, judging, and acting. Right? Because I love what Drake said, my actions speak louder than my words. Right? What are you doing? Now is the call to action part, right? God's voice rises from the margins, right? I think that's been kind of the story of liberation theology, probably where I pulled all this from, right? And somewhere I read that praying is like, singing is like praying 2 times, right? I say rapping is like praying 3 times, sister, right? Dancing, maybe 4 or 5 times that, right? And guess what? When I was studying Kabbalah for 2 years with my Jewish brothers and sisters, I'll never forget what my rabbi said to me. He said, Walter, every time you serve, you get a new soul. I get a new soul? That means I get another chance. My brothers and sisters, the world needs you. St. Martin de Porres really showed us a lot what it means to break down racial lines. I'm not even going to get into what's going on in our world. You all know what's going on in our world today. We need a lot more St. Martin de Porres in our neighborhoods, in our families. Our ministry begins with our family, and then community, and then the margins. It's a circular thing. And each of those spaces and places, we're called to be prophets and prophetseers for the women, prophetess, right? But what are we doing differently? What are we doing creatively, right? To reach to that audience. That's number 1. But number 2, even with everything that you're doing now, I don't care if you're baking the cookies, sweeping the floors, right? Or volunteering. Every single thing you do it for the glory of God, and God will duplicate that for you in your life. He's done it to me. Thank you.
Another thank you for Dr. Hidalgo for speaking and being with us today. And thank you to all of you for joining us for our Founders Week keynote. Our next event will be tomorrow at 9:45 back in this room, the Living the Legacy talk with Jonathan Delgado, our speaker over here, who is a very distinguished alum and has immense responsibility on this campus. So I look forward to hearing from him. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll also have the pilgrimage and planting, which will meet right out front of Rosary at 2:30. It'll be about an hour, and a place just to walk around campus and to do some planting and some reflections on campus. Couple quick announcements. Students, there's lots of snacks. Please take some, bring some for friends. Faculty, staff, and sisters, next door there's a light lunch in the PRC. And if the sisters, Dr. Martinez and Walter, can come forward for a photo right after. Thank you all for joining us today.